Hey everyone, yeah, you saw the title. To start this one off nice and clear, I'm dropping the spoiler warning right here in the second sentence of the video. We're going to be talking about the whole shebang today, so if you're not caught up in both manga, Vigilantes, and My Hero Academia, turn back now. But before you do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Let's go grab a drink! Alright folks, welcome to the bar. I know I put some crazy energy out there with this video title, but as of My Hero Academia Chapter 300, I'm a dog with a bone when it comes to this topic. Now, the ensuing chapters of My Hero Academia after 297 broke down heroic society to the point where the current state kind of feels like the opportune chance to introduce Koichi and the Vigilantes. Now, I know some of you are definitely on the same wavelength as I am regarding as to how My Vigilante Academia could actually happen, but I gotta get my thoughts out as to what could happen, so without further ado, let's head over to the wall so I can vomit these ideas out. So, in Chapter 300, it's pretty much established that heroic society is 100% fucked. The heroes are resigning left and right, and now the average civilian is more or less required to toss the hands if they want to live and thrive. So now if there's a villain outbreak in your town, you want to make sure that the villain is like, nah, don't rob that bodega over there, he has a gun quirk and he'll Swiss cheese you the minute you walk in. But if I were to harp on one of the biggest brushed over scenes in my opinion, it's the fact that Stain returned to action in Chapter 300. And I understand in that chapter there was a lot to get across in a limited amount of time, so Stain being planted lets me know that yeah, he's back. He might not be a player right now, but check back in 10 chapters. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up Stain as a means to introduce the Vigilantes in My Hero Academia is because in Chapter 300 we see Stain's base of operations, or rather his broken shack that we've seen before in Vigilantes. Now, the introduction of this location could mean that we are seeing Naruhara, or at least a surrounding suburb of it, in My Hero Academia. It's a little bit of insinuation, but if Stain returns to the fold and Deku is still incapacitated, it leaves for underutilized characters like Ida to return to the plot. I mean, I'm totally looking forward to that rematch. The story has already focused on Ida before, and being that Ida's the only speedster of the group, I really need him to start acting like the Flash if he's gonna actually hold a candle to the rest of the cast of My Hero Academia, and at least hold the title of fastest man alive. Look, just because Deku is destined to become the greatest hero ever doesn't mean that along the way his comrades shouldn't grow as well. We've seen that Horikoshi likes to power up his characters, so it could be Ida's time to get pushed a little bit. The reason why I'm saying this, is because thinking back to the previous chapters, he's been missing. And we know from past experiences that usually the first person in the recovery room to greet the students is Ida. He's supposed to be that guy that's always there for his friends. But Ida's also the guy who won't rest with the hero killer on the loose. Now, I don't know if he's actually amongst the wounded students, but it's kind of clear that his grudge against Stain always will exist. Stain's ideals in general have just kind of molded him into that prototypical arch-nemesis for Ingenium. And no matter the occasion, Stain is always going to be that villain within Ida's heart that's going to make him act and think irrationally. We can only hope that this time that they encounter one another, Ida is ready. The story has made points to show us at certain junctions that Ida's grown as a hero, but if he goes after him again, Stain ain't gonna be wearing the kid gloves. Though if the fight does happen in Naruhara and it does get out of hand and there's no heroes around, the only person that's gonna be able to come to Ida's aid is gonna be the Crawler. Not to mention, if someone slinks around Naruhara calling themselves Ingenium fighting crime, Koichi's gonna show up and be like, wait a second, I knew Ingenium. You're not Ingenium. Oh, and secondly, if Koichi recognizes Stendhal and finds out that this is the person who ended Ingenium's career, he's gonna go straight after him. And when they face off against Stain, I really hope that Stain just becomes that bridging gap between the two titles to meet. I know it's not just me that would want to see Koichi interact with the various kids at UA, but before he does get to Deku, I'd be totally fine with him meeting Ida. I mean, imagine Ida teaming up with the Vigilantes. It would be absolutely hilarious for his character. He can learn all about the incident with the cat bus and how Ingenium was a real bro when it came to discovering that Koichi was a vigilante. But also, Koichi being a speedster himself, he could definitely impart some knowledge to him. And as for when Deku awakens, Ida could be the character that introduces Koichi to Deku, and that whole can of worms just gets busted open. I know, amongst everybody, there's the big assumption that number 6 is now free because of the various jailbreaks happening across Japan, but that's yet to be solved. This week's new chapter of My Hero Academia Vigilantes will give us more insight as to what's happening in the present for that timeline. So we'll have to see what comes of it now that the flashback is over. I know that they're already well into volume 12, so it'll actually be interesting to see if, chapter 100 will be the finale. 6 chapters is 4 months in Vigilantes time. And honestly, 6 chapters is more than enough time to wrap up this arc. And I'm super pumped for the prospect of vigilantism becoming the norm in My Hero Academia. The smart villains like Stain and Overhaul, they're gonna go underground to act more at large, while the dumber gangs of the cider variety will go out in the open and cause a big stink that either a Nomu will show up or the cops will show up and shoot them to death. But my biggest takeaway is that, now these average individuals are just gonna start rocking support items to handle their own business. And they're even gonna go as far as bashing heroes, telling them to get out. I mean, when I think back, everyone wanted to kind of criticize the commission for giving this year's batch of UA kids provisional licenses within their first year. And it's gonna be interesting to see if UA survives this mass heroic exodus. It's a genuine question to wonder if classes at UA will continue, and at one point or another, every student in that class has proven themselves capable of fighting crime. But the decision to close UA would kind of do away with the whole school setting for a bit, and my personal opinion is I really kind of hope that none of the kids from UA quit, and if they are on the verge of quitting, they kind of get encouraged by their friends to, not give up their dream. I mean, this story is about becoming an educated hero, not an accountant, so I guess in a way they have to figure out how to bring back this sense of normalcy amongst the chaos that's currently occurring. The line between being a vigilante and being a hero is 100% blurred for the time being. All For One has somehow figured out to instill this mentality that, the weak must die, and if you are not weak, you can claim what you can win. So now that everybody around is gonna have this, sick and twisted mentality, there better be a balls to the walls attempt to regain the average goings of society. But I encourage everybody to still remember that this is All For One we're talking about, and all of this shit going on is definitely a misdirection for him to actually pull off some greater scheme. The previous arc was the definition of winning the battle and losing the war for the heroes, and when the heroes stage their comeback, I am hoping that Deku gets this crazy power boost akin to something like the Hashira training, or straight up hyperbolic time chambers for everyone like it's a fucking episode of Oprah. And that power boost that we're looking for Deku to get, it's probably gonna happen inside of that coma. Think about it, right now, him being in that coma is pretty much the exact equivalent of Shigaraki being in the hospital in that induced quirk frenzy sleep that he was in. Except this one is, why isn't he waking up? He's fine. And I think what's really going to happen is inside of Deku's mind, One For All is going to test him to see if maybe he can actually control the full scope of One For All. I think it would be pretty cool if maybe he was locked inside of his mind with only the company of the second and the third users, because they themselves look like they were locked inside of One For All. So my guess is that maybe when Deku wakes up, he awakens to this gigantic rush of power and then just starts taking care of everything. But in the meantime, while this motherfucker is conked out, give time to people who otherwise wouldn't have any. There's so many compelling characters in My Hero Academia, period, that we are overdue for some story-driven plot that boils over into a huge fight, not a war. I'm talking arcs like Gentle and Stain. Those are organic and coincidental. Also, I can't believe I'm thinking of Gentle now. Who knows what that guy's gonna be up to once everything goes down. And before we sign off today, in my comments, people have really wanted me to kind of address the theory that Inko Midoriya is dead. I think it's a lot of insinuation to say that she's dead. It's more or less in the same vein as me thinking that Stain's shack is in Naruhata. While one is more plot-driven than the other and would act as a detriment to the main character, I don't think that Inko Midoriya dying kind of serves the plot for the time being. I mean, yeah, it could possibly bring back Hisashi Midoriya, bringing him back into the fold, but right now I just don't see the reason for her to die, especially as an off-screen death. Compass Kid got more respect in his death. But other than that, that's going to do it for today's video. If you think that Ida's going to go back after Stain, let me know in the comments down below. Also, do you think it's time for the Vigilantes to show up in the coming chapters now that Heroic Society is taking a shit? Let me know down below. I gotta go stop Sanji and Spike from smoking in front of the door again. I'm out of here. Cheers.